Jake Morrison stood in the center of the biggest room he had ever seen. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, but they moved and changed colors like a rainbow. Above him, the ceiling went up so high he could barely see the top. This was the Galactic Council Chamber, where alien leaders from 12 different worlds made decisions about who could join their group. Jake wore his best uniform. The blue fabric had golden buttons that caught the strange light in the room. Behind him stood 4 other humans. Dr. Lisa Hayes carried a bag full of papers and computer tablets. She had been working on this moment for 3 years. Commander Rick Torres kept his hands at his sides, but Jake could see he was ready for trouble. The other 2 team members, Ben Parker and Kate Miller, looked around the room with wide eyes. The aliens sat in tall chairs that floated in the air. Some of the creatures looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra arms. Others were so strange that Jake had to force himself not to stare. One looked like a giant spider made of metal. Another was just a cloud of gas that somehow talked through a machine. Counselor Veltar spoke first. He was tall and thin with skin like green leather and 4 yellow eyes. When he talked, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "We have studied your planet Earth," he said. "Your people show promise in science and art, but we have concerns." Jake stepped forward. "What kind of concerns, Counselor?" Veltar waved one of his long arms. The air in front of them filled with moving pictures. Jake saw images of human wars, explosions, and fighting. The pictures showed the worst moments in human history. "Your species is violent," Veltar said. "You fight each other constantly. How can we trust you with other worlds?" Dr. Hayes opened her mouth to argue, but another alien spoke first. This one looked like a large bird with purple feathers. "The humans also show kindness," she said. "They help each other during disasters. They care for animals that are not their own species." "That proves nothing," Veltar replied. "Wild animals can seem gentle until they attack." Jake felt his anger rising, but he kept his voice calm. "We came here in peace. We want to learn from you and share what we know." The floating chairs moved around the room as the aliens talked among themselves. Some spoke in languages that sounded like music. Others made clicking noises or whistles. Jake could not understand most of it, but he could tell they were arguing about humans. During this talk, Jake noticed something moving in the corner of the room. At first he thought it was a shadow. Then he saw it was a small creature about the size of a human child. It had pale blue skin and large violet eyes that seemed too big for its face. The little being was trying to hide behind a piece of the crystal wall. The creature looked scared. It kept glancing at the floating chairs where the aliens argued. When one of them spoke loudly, the small being would shake and try to make itself even smaller. Jake looked more closely at the chairs and found the one the creature was watching. A female alien sat there, with the same blue skin as the small one. She had long silver hair and wore expensive-looking clothes. This had to be the child's parent, but the woman was not paying attention to her young one. She was busy talking with other council members, making deals and promises. Every time the child made a small sound, she would turn and give it a look that made the little one go quiet. Jake had a daughter back on Earth. Her name was Amy, and she was 8 years old. When Amy was scared, she would run to Jake and he would hold her until she felt safe. This alien child had no one to comfort it. The arguing got louder. Veltar was showing more pictures of human violence. Other aliens were taking sides. Some wanted to give humans a chance. Others thought Earth was too dangerous. During a break in the talking, Jake walked slowly toward the corner where the child was hiding. He moved carefully the way he did when he found injured animals in the woods near his home. The child saw him coming and pressed itself against the wall. Its big eyes were full of fear but also curiosity. Jake had seen that same look on Amy's face when she met new people. Jake stopped a few feet away and sat down on the floor. This made him smaller and less scary. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brown square. It was chocolate, something he always carried for luck. "Hey there," Jake said softly. "Are you hungry?" The child tilted its head, not understanding the words but hearing the gentle tone. Jake unwrapped the chocolate and broke off a small piece. He held it out in his open palm. The little alien looked toward its parent, but the woman was still busy with politics. The child looked back at Jake and took a tiny step forward. Jake stayed very still. The child took another step, then another. Finally, it reached out with a small hand and touched the chocolate. Jake smiled, and the child's eyes went wide. Then, very carefully, it took the candy and put it in its mouth. The taste must have been good because the child's face lit up with joy. It was the first time Jake had seen it look happy since entering the room. "There you go," Jake whispered. "Not so bad, right?" The child took another step closer. Jake could see it was very young, maybe the same age as Amy. It wore simple clothes and had small cuts on its hands, like it had been playing somewhere rough. Back in the center of the room, the aliens were still arguing about humans. They talked about Earth like it was a problem to solve, not a home to billions of people. Jake felt frustrated, but looking at this scared child reminded him why he was really here. The humans had come to join the Galactic Council to make the universe safer for everyone. They wanted to protect the innocent and help those who needed it. Right now, this little alien needed help more than anyone else in the room. The child sat down near Jake, staying just out of reach but close enough to feel safe. It ate the chocolate slowly, making it last as long as possible. Jake smiled and got ready to offer another piece. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would soon change everything for both of them, and for the entire galaxy. The break ended too soon. Jake had to leave the small alien child and return to the center of the room. The little one watched him go with sad eyes but stayed hidden in the corner. The floating chairs moved back into their circle. Counselor Veltar looked pleased about something which made Jake worry. The green-skinned alien held a small device in his hand that glowed with red light. "Fellow council members," Veltar announced, "I have received new information about the humans. What I'm about to show you will change how we see these creatures." The air filled with new pictures. Jake watched in horror as the images showed human spaceships attacking what looked like a peaceful research station. The video was clear and detailed. It showed Earth's military forces destroying buildings and harming innocent aliens. But Jake knew this was impossible. Humans had never fought aliens before. They had only just learned that other species existed. These pictures had to be fake, but they looked completely real. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "This is not true," she said firmly. "Humans have never attacked any alien station. We have been in contact with you for only 6 months." Veltar's 4 eyes all focused on her. "Are you calling the evidence false? These images come from our most trusted sources." "Someone made these pictures to hurt us," Dr. Hayes replied. "Anyone with good computers can create fake videos." But the other aliens were already talking among themselves. Jake could see doubt growing in their faces. The bird-like alien who had supported humans earlier now looked worried. A creature that looked like a walking tree was shaking its branches in what seemed like anger. Commander Torres moved closer to Jake. "This is a setup," he whispered. "Someone wanted us to fail from the beginning." Jake nodded but kept watching the child in the corner. The little alien seemed to understand that something bad was happening. It was shaking again, and its big violet eyes darted between the angry adults. Veltar continued his attack. The humans claimed to be peaceful, but their own history shows constant warfare. "Now we have proof they attack innocent beings. How long before they turn on us?" A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a giant fish with legs. "Perhaps we should vote to remove them from consideration entirely." "More than that," Veltar said, his voice getting louder. "These creatures are dangerous. We should make sure they never leave their own solar system. A complete quarantine would protect everyone." Jake felt his heart sink. A quarantine meant Earth would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy forever. Humans would never be able to explore the stars or learn from other worlds. Worse, if Earth ever faced a disaster, no one would help them. The aliens began to vote. One by one, they changed their support from acceptance to rejection. The fake evidence was too convincing, and Veltar was too good at using fear to control the others. During this terrible moment, Jake heard a small sound from the corner. The alien child had made a tiny cry of fear. Jake looked and saw the child's parent, the silver-haired female, moving toward the little one. The woman's face was full of anger. She grabbed the child by the arm and pulled it to its feet. "You embarrass me," she hissed in a language that Jake's translator could understand. "Sitting with the violent humans like some pet." The child tried to pull away, but the woman's grip was too strong. Jake saw finger marks on the little one's blue skin where it had been grabbed before. "Please, mother," the child whispered. "The human was kind to me." "Kind?" The woman laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "Humans are not kind. They are weapons that look like people. You will learn this lesson." She dragged the child back toward the floating chairs. The little alien looked over its shoulder at Jake with pleading eyes. Jake wanted to help, but he was surrounded by alien guards who were already suspicious of humans. Dr. Hayes was still trying to prove the evidence was fake, but no one was listening. The council had made up their minds. Humans were dangerous and needed to be controlled. Veltar raised his arms for attention. The vote is clear. Humanity will be rejected from the Galactic Council. Furthermore, their world will be marked as a restricted zone. No ships may travel to or from Earth without special permission. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. 3 years of work destroyed by lies and fear. But worse than the political failure was watching the small child suffer. The silver-haired woman had returned to her chair, pulling the child up beside her. She kept one hand on the little one's shoulder, squeezing hard enough to make it whimper. Every time the child moved, the woman's grip got tighter. "We will now discuss the details of the quarantine," Veltar continued. "Earth's sun system will be surrounded by warning beacons. Any human ship that tries to leave will be turned back or destroyed." The word destroyed made several aliens look uncomfortable. Even though they feared humans, the idea of killing them seemed to bother some council members. Jake noticed that the child was crying now, but making no sound. Tears ran down its blue cheeks, but it had learned not to make noise when upset. This broke Jake's heart more than anything else. The woman noticed the tears and leaned down to whisper something in the child's ear. Whatever she said made the little one go very still, like it was trying to become invisible. Commander Torres put his hand on Jake's shoulder. "We need to go," he said quietly. "The guards are getting ready to escort us out." Jake looked around the room. Most of the aliens were already moving on to other business. To them, the human problem was solved. Earth would be locked away, and they could forget about the violent species that had dared to ask for membership. But Jake could not forget about the scared child who had trusted him enough to take chocolate from his hand. He could not ignore the way its mother treated it, or the fear in those big violet eyes. As the human team was led toward the exit, Jake made a decision. He did not know how yet, but he was going to help that child. Some things were more important than politics or even the future of Earth's relationship with alien worlds. The little alien was innocent, and innocence deserved protection no matter what species it belonged to. The human team was being led to a waiting area when the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the crystal chamber, and a loud warning sound filled the air. The alien guard stopped walking and looked around in confusion. "Environmental alert," a mechanical voice announced. "Atmospheric contamination detected in the main chamber. All personnel move to safety zones immediately." Jake turned to look back at the council chamber. Through the clear walls, he could see the alien leaders rushing toward small pods that rose from the floor. These safety pods could protect them from dangerous air, but there were only enough for the council members. The alien child was still in the chamber. Its mother had pushed into one of the safety pods and sealed it shut, leaving the little one standing alone in the middle of the room. "Wait," Jake said to the guards. "There's a child in there." The guards looked where Jake was pointing. One of them, a creature with orange skin and too many arms, made a sound like a sigh. "The young Catherian is not our concern. We follow orders to protect council members only." Jake stared at the guard. "You're going to let a child die?" "The contamination will clear soon," another guard said. "Perhaps the young one will survive." But Jake could see that the child was already having trouble breathing. The little alien was holding its throat and gasping for air. Its blue skin was starting to turn a darker color. Dr. Hayes pushed past the guards to stand next to Jake. She was holding a small device that measured air quality. "The contamination is deadly to Catherian biology," she said. "That child has maybe 2 minutes before permanent damage." Through the clear wall, Jake watched the child fall to its knees. The little alien looked around desperately for help, but all the safety pods were sealed. Even its own mother was not trying to help. Commander Torres grabbed one of the guards by the arm. "Open the chamber. We can get the child out." The guard pulled away. "Impossible. Opening the chamber would contaminate this area too. We cannot risk the safety of important beings for one small Catherian." Jake felt rage building in his chest. These aliens talked about humans being violent, but they were willing to watch a child die for political reasons. He looked closer at the safety pods and realized something terrible. The chamber had exactly 12 pods, one for each council member, but Jake had counted 13 aliens in the meeting. Someone had planned for the child to be left out. "This is no accident," he said to his team. "Someone wanted that child to die." Dr. Hayes checked her device again. The contamination is specific to Catherian biology. It won't hurt most other species, but it's deadly poison to them. Jake watched the child collapse completely. The little alien was lying on the crystal floor, barely moving. Its mother was visible through her pod's window, but she was not even looking in the child's direction. "The child is not important," one of the guards said. "It is merely the offspring of a minor council member. Its death will be recorded as an unfortunate accident." That was when Jake understood the whole plan. Someone wanted to get rid of the child, probably for political reasons. The fake evidence against humans was just a distraction. The real target had always been the innocent little alien who had shared chocolate with him. Veltar's pod was positioned where he could see everything. Through the clear material, Jake could see the green-skinned alien watching the child die with satisfaction. This had been his plan from the beginning. "We have to do something," Kate Miller said. She was the youngest member of the human team, and tears were running down her face as she watched the child suffer. The guards moved to block the humans from going back to the chamber. "You will remain here," the orange-skinned one commanded. "Any attempt to interfere will be seen as an act of violence." Jake looked at his team. Dr. Hayes was studying her instruments, trying to find a solution. Commander Torres was calculating whether they could fight past the guards. Ben Parker and Kate Miller were both ready to help, despite the danger. The child was barely breathing now. Its small body was curled up on the floor and its violet eyes were starting to close. In a few more seconds it would be too late. Jake thought about his daughter Amy back on Earth. He thought about all the children on all the worlds who might face this same cruelty someday. The Galactic Council was supposed to protect people, but they were willing to murder innocents for politics. "I'm going in there," Jake announced. The guards raised their weapons. "You will not move," the orange-skinned one warned. "The contamination will poison the human too," another guard added. "His death will also be an accident." Dr. Hayes looked up from her device. "Actually, the contamination is designed to target Catherian biology specifically. It might make humans sick, but it probably won't kill Jake." Probably was not good enough for Commander Torres. "It's too dangerous, Captain. We can't lose you too." But Jake was already moving. He pushed past the first guard before the creature could react. The guard tried to grab him, but Jake was faster and more determined. "Stop him," the guards shouted, but Jake was already at the chamber door. The door was locked, but Jake still remembered some tricks from his military training. He pulled out a small tool and began working on the lock mechanism. Behind him, he could hear the guards arguing about whether to shoot him. "If you kill the human, it will look suspicious," one of them said. "Better to let him die from the contamination." The lock clicked open. Jake took a deep breath and stepped into the poisoned chamber. The air tasted wrong, like metal and chemicals, but he could breathe. The child was only a few feet away. Jake ran to it and dropped to his knees beside the small body. The little alien's eyes opened when it felt his touch. "Hey there," Jake said softly, just like before. "Remember me?" The child tried to speak but could only make a small sound. Jake could see that it was dying, but there was still time to save it. He scooped the little alien into his arms and stood up. The child was lighter than he expected, and it felt very cold. Jake held it close to his chest, trying to share his body heat. Through the chamber walls, he could see the guards gathering outside. They were pointing weapons at him, but they seemed unsure what to do. Shooting him now would be obviously murder, not an accident. In the safety pods, the council members were watching through their windows. Most looked surprised that a human would risk his life for an alien child. But Veltar looked angry that his plan was being ruined. Jake looked down at the small being in his arms. The child was looking up at him with trust and hope, the same way Amy looked at him when she was scared. That was when Jake realized something important. This was not just about saving one child. This was about showing the galaxy what humans really were. Not the violent monsters in Veltar's fake videos, but people who would risk everything to protect innocence. Jake looked directly at Veltar's pod and made a decision that would change everything. Jake stood in the center of the poisoned chamber, holding the dying child against his chest. The little alien was so weak it could barely keep its eyes open, but it was still breathing. That was what mattered. The guards outside were shouting orders at each other, but Jake ignored them. He looked directly at Veltar's safety pod and saw the green-skinned alien's 4 eyes staring back at him with cold anger. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Hayes called through the chamber wall, "I can activate a medical field around you, but you need to stay very still." Jake nodded without looking away from Veltar. The alien had planned this murder carefully, using the human visit as cover for getting rid of an innocent child. But Jake was about to ruin that plan completely. The air around Jake began to shimmer as Dr. Hayes activated her emergency medical equipment. The field would filter out most of the poison and give the child a chance to recover. But it would only last for a few minutes. Through the safety pod windows, Jake could see the council members watching in shock. None of them had expected a human to risk his life for an alien child. Some looked ashamed that they had not tried to help. The child's mother, the silver-haired Catherian woman, was pressing her face against her pod's window. But she was not looking worried about her child. She looked angry that her political plans were being interrupted. "Human?" Veltar's voice came through the communication system. "Release the Catherian young and leave the chamber immediately. You are interfering with council business." Jake finally spoke, and his voice carried through the entire chamber. "Her name is not Catherian Young. What's your name, sweetheart?" The child in his arms whispered something so soft that only Jake could hear it. The word was in her own language, but Jake's translator caught it. "Luna," Jake said loudly so everyone could hear. "Her name is Luna." Veltar's pod shook as the alien inside grew more angry. "The name is irrelevant. Return the offspring to its proper guardian." Jake looked at the silver-haired woman in her pod. She was making gestures that clearly meant she wanted her child back, but Jake had seen how she treated Luna before. He had seen the finger marks on the child's arms and the fear in her eyes. "No," Jake said simply. The word echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. Every alien, every guard, every council member stared at him in disbelief. Humans were supposed to be the ones asking for permission to join their group. They were not supposed to refuse direct orders. "You will obey council authority," Veltar commanded. "Return the Catherian property immediately." Jake felt something change inside him when Veltar called Luna property. The rage that had been building in his chest suddenly became something much stronger and more dangerous. This was not just anger anymore. This was the protective fury that humans felt when innocents were threatened. "She's not property," Jake said, and his voice was deeper than before. "She's a child. And she's mine now." The word mine hit the chamber like a physical force. Jake had not planned to say it, but once the word was out, he knew it was true. Luna was his to protect, just like Amy was his to protect. Species did not matter when it came to keeping children safe. Luna stirred in his arms and looked up at him. Despite being weak from the poison, she seemed to understand what had just happened. Someone had finally claimed her, not as property but as family. Commander Torres and the rest of the human team had moved closer to the chamber wall. They could see the change in Jake's posture and expression. This was not the diplomatic captain who had tried to negotiate with the council. This was something much more primal and dangerous. "You cannot claim ownership of another species," Veltar protested, but his voice sounded less confident than before. "I'm not claiming ownership," Jake replied. "I'm claiming responsibility." "There's a difference." Dr. Hayes was working frantically with her equipment. "Jake, the medical field is failing. We need to get Luna out of there now." But the guards were still blocking the chamber door. They had weapons pointed at Jake, and their orders were clear. No one was supposed to leave until the accident was complete. Jake looked around the chamber and made a quick decision. The safety pods were designed to protect the council members, but they could also be used as weapons. Jake shifted Luna to one arm and used his free hand to grab the nearest pod. The pod was heavier than it looked, but Jake's adrenaline gave him extra strength. He lifted it over his head and threw it at the chamber door. The crystal barrier shattered like glass, and fresh air rushed into the room. The guards jumped back to avoid the flying debris. In the confusion, Commander Torres and Ben Parker rushed through the broken doorway. They formed a protective circle around Jake and Luna, while Dr. Hayes set up a full medical station. "The child is stabilizing," Dr. Hayes announced, as her scanners showed Luna's vital signs improving. "But she's been poisoned pretty badly. She needs proper medical treatment." Veltar's pod finally opened, and the green-skinned alien stepped out. His face showed pure rage, but also something like fear. His careful plan had been completely destroyed by one human's refusal to obey. "This is an act of violence against the council," Veltar declared. "The humans have proven they are as dangerous as we suspected. But other council members were also leaving their pods, and they did not look convinced." The bird-like alien approached Jake cautiously. "Human captain," she said in her musical voice. Why did you risk your life for a child that is not your species? Jake looked down at Luna, who was breathing normally now and had some color returning to her blue skin. Because that's what you do for family, he said simply. You protect them no matter what. The tree-like alien made a rustling sound that might have been laughter. This human shows more parental instinct than the actual parent. Everyone looked at the silver-haired Catherian woman, who was still in her pod. She could have come out to check on her child, but she was staying hidden behind the safety glass. The offspring was disobedient, the woman said through the communication system. It needed to learn consequences. By dying? Kate Miller asked in disbelief. The woman did not answer, but her silence was answer enough. Luna whispered something in Jake's ear. His translator told him she was saying thank you in her own language, but the meaning was much deeper than that. She was thanking him for choosing her when no one else would. Jake held her a little tighter and looked around the chamber. The room had changed completely. The aliens were seeing humans in a new way, not as violent invaders, but as protectors of the innocent. But Veltar was not finished. He raised his arms for attention, his 4 eyes blazing with anger. This changes nothing, he announced. The humans are still dangerous. Now they have stolen Council property and destroyed Council facilities. The quarantine of Earth is more necessary than ever. Jake met Veltar's gaze without flinching. Then you'll have to go through me first, he said. The room fell silent as everyone realized that everything had changed forever. The chamber stayed silent for a long moment. Jake stood holding Luna while the council members stared at him. Some looked afraid, others looked curious, but all of them seemed to be seeing humans differently than before. Then something unexpected happened. The crystal walls began to change color, shifting from rainbow patterns to a deep golden glow. A new voice spoke through the chamber's communication system, but this one was ancient and wise. Fascinating, the voice said. Absolutely fascinating. A section of the floor opened up and a platform rose from below. On it stood an alien unlike any Jake had ever seen. The creature was tall and thin, with skin that looked like living stone. Its eyes were solid silver and seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. Elder Morden, Veltar said, and for the first time, his voice showed fear. I was not aware you were observing today's proceedings. The ancient alien stepped off the platform and walked slowly toward Jake. Luna stirred in Jake's arms but did not seem afraid. If anything, she appeared comforted by the elder's presence. I observe everything that happens in this chamber, Morden said, especially when it involves tests of character. Veltar's 4 eyes went wide. Tests? What test? Morden gestured toward the broken chamber door and the scattered debris. Did you really think we did not know about your plan, Veltar? Your scheme to eliminate young Luna and blame it on atmospheric failure? The green-skinned alien took a step backward. I have no idea what you mean. Of course you do, Morden replied calmly. You needed Luna dead because her bloodline threatens your political position. If she lives to adulthood, she could claim leadership of the Catherian delegation. Your supporters would lose power. Jake looked down at the child in his arms with new understanding. Luna was not just any Catherian young. She was royalty or something close to it. That explained why her mother treated her so badly, and why Veltar wanted her gone. The atmospheric contamination was designed specifically to kill Catherians, Dr. Hayes said, still scanning Luna with her medical equipment. Someone programmed the chamber's systems to release the poison. Morden nodded. Veltar has been planning this for months. The fake evidence against humanity was meant to provide chaos and distraction, while Luna died in an accident. 2 problems solved at once. The bird-like council member made an angry chirping sound. You used us, she said to Veltar. You made us vote against humanity based on lies. Everything I showed you was real, Veltar protested, but his voice was getting weaker. Real but false, Morden corrected. The images were created by your technicians using Earth's own entertainment videos. Very convincing, but completely fabricated. Commander Torres stepped forward. So humans never attacked any alien research station? Of course not, Morden said. We have been watching your species for decades, Captain Morrison. We know exactly what humans are capable of, both good and bad. Jake felt confused. If you knew we were innocent, why didn't you stop the vote? The elder's silver eyes focused on Jake and Luna. Because we needed to see what you would do when faced with a choice between your mission and an innocent life. Your species was being judged, but not in the way you thought. The tree-like alien rustled its branches. The real test was whether humans would sacrifice their goals to protect a child of another species. And Jake passed, Kate Miller said with pride in her voice. More than passed, Morden replied. He demonstrated something we have rarely seen in any species. When faced with injustice, he chose action over politics. When confronted with authority, he chose morality. And when challenged to obey, he said mine, and meant it with his life. Luna made a small sound and looked up at Jake. Her violet eyes were clear now, and she was smiling. She reached up with one small hand and touched Jake's face gently. Da, she whispered, using the universal word for father. Jake felt his heart break and heal at the same time. Yes, sweetheart. I'm your Da now. Veltar made one last attempt to save his plan. The human has no legal right to claim a Catherian child. Their species is not even part of the council. That is about to change, Morden announced. By unanimous vote of the Elder Council, humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Most of the council members seemed pleased, but a few looked worried about this sudden change. Furthermore, Morden continued, Captain Morrison's claim of guardianship over Luna is recognized under galactic law. She is now legally his daughter. Luna clapped her small hands together with joy. She had gone from being an unwanted burden to being a beloved child in the space of one afternoon, but Morden was not finished. The council has also voted to create a new position. Captain Morrison, you are hereby appointed as the first Director of Child Protection Services for the Galactic Council. Your mission will be to ensure that no young being suffers as Luna has suffered. Jake stared at the Elder in shock. I don't understand. An hour ago you were ready to quarantine Earth forever. The council was ready, Morden corrected, but the Elder Council was watching for something different. We needed to know if humans could be trusted with the most important responsibility in the galaxy, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Dr. Hayes looked up from her equipment. Luna is completely healthy now. The medical treatment worked perfectly. The silver-haired Catherian woman finally emerged from her safety pod. She approached Jake and Luna with obvious reluctance. I demand the return of my offspring, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, Jake replied, just as firmly as before. She is my biological child, the woman insisted. Biology doesn't make you a parent, Jake said. Love makes you a parent. Care makes you a parent. Being willing to die for them makes you a parent. Luna buried her face against Jake's shoulder, making it clear where she wanted to stay. Morden addressed the Catherian woman directly. Counselor Thys, you are hereby removed from the council for child endangerment and conspiracy to commit murder. Your parental rights are terminated. The woman's face went pale, but she could not argue with the evidence. She had chosen politics over her child's life, and everyone had seen it. As the guards led Veltar and Thys away, the other council members gathered around Jake and Luna. They seemed amazed by what they had witnessed. How did you know she was worth saving? The fish-like alien asked. Jake looked down at Luna, who was now playing with the buttons on his uniform. All children are worth saving, he said simply. That's not something you figure out. That's something you just know. The bird-like council member made a musical sound of agreement. Perhaps this is what we have been missing in our galaxy. The human instinct to protect the innocent above all else. Morden nodded. The universe is a dangerous place. We needed guardians who would choose love over law, protection over politics. Today we found them. Luna looked up at Jake and said her first word in English. Daddy. The room filled with the sound of approval from a dozen different species. In that moment, Jake realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer asking to join the galactic community. They were being invited to lead it. And it all started because one man saw a scared child and said the most powerful word in any language. Mine.